All right, Fresh, let's go to the game of the week. This is might not be the best game on the field. Well, it's a pretty darn good game, but it's probably going to be the most interesting game for all the outside hubbubaloo. And yes, I've been waiting to use the word hubbubaloo for a while there. So if you have that on your bingo card, mark that one off. The Michigan Wolverines, with all the craziness, all the things going around them, they're traveling to Happy Valley. This is a noon kickoff. Michigan is a 4.5 point road favorite. Over under is set at 45.5. Fresh. I got a very strong take on this one, but I'll let you go first here.
This is the something has to give game between the Scandalines and the Wolverines and the Nittany Lions. Um, they're very, very evenly matched on paper. They both run focused, power formation, one or two tight ends, bunch them up, run the ball, play action, mid to level passing game out of it to keep it down distance, and they both play great defense. This is it's like a mirror image of both these schools coming at it. And there's a lot of other things that make this more of a very common mirror image when it comes down to the stats and the metrics, whatever. These squads have owned the third quarter, so something has to give here. They have combined to outscore their opponents 211 to nothing in the third quarter. So either we're going to get a nothing third quarter, or both teams are scoring on each other like crazy. Now keep that in mind that both these teams come out of the locker room, they make adjustments, and they put their foot down and put football games away. And that's what you have to do as a good football team in the third quarter. You come in, you make adjustments, and you come out with a fire to take the other team's will. And both these teams have been doing a pretty good job at it so far this season. Michigan leads the nation with 12 straight games of scoring 30 points or more. That's number one. That leads the country. Penn State has allowed 24 or less points in 14 straight games and has only allowed 40 or more points two times in their last 39, those being their losses to Michigan and Ohio State last year. It means they are going to shut you down. They're going to keep the game very low scoring, and they're going to slug it out with you the entire time. And you are not going to be in a shootout with them. And if you are scoring above 24, you're probably going to beat Penn State. They don't have the firepower to really keep up with them. So their goal is to run the clock, play defense, keep it mediocre, and lock you down defensively and force those 3 outs, force the turnover, especially in the red zone, lock it down. They don't give up many points very often, so expect this to be a very tight battle. Michigan has allowed 13 or less points in 9 straight games and less than 30 points in 34 of their last 37 games. The only times that they have allowed 30 or more points have been losses to Michigan State, TCU, and Georgia. So if you can get to 30 points on them, good chance you're beating Michigan. The last 6 times Michigan has gone to Happy Valley, they won that in 2021, 21-17, a very sloppy ball game. They came back late and scored a touchdown. They lost in 2019, lost in 2017. They won 28-16 in 2015, and they lost in the 2 years before that in 2013 and 2010. They do not have much success in Happy Valley. On the flip side, they're 4-1 up in Ann Arbor against Penn State. They own them up there. They struggle. They just do not have the same feel when they come to Happy Valley and play Penn State in that environment. And it's going to be rocking. How does J.J. McCarthy handle it? Last year, his only true big road game that he played last year was at Ohio State. He looked okay. He played pretty well. Obviously, we know, and the end result was there. How does he transition that and get a big road win here in Happy Valley against Penn State? Can he keep his motions? Can the offense keep building? Can they run the ball with Corum and Edwards? And does he make the right throws and not get caught up in the emotions of what's going on outside the football field right now and try to do too much? That's the one thing that kind of worries me if I'm a Michigan fan. Your team is great, but all the stuff on the outside right now, the whole scandal, whatever's going on, are the players going to try to do too much to prove that it's not about having the extra stuff? Are they going to try to take an extra throw? Are they going to try to do something outlandish to say, it's always been us, we don't need the signs or the knowing what everything else is? And that's where you start getting a little selfish, in my opinion, and that's where bad things could start to happen. They got cocky versus TCU. They overlooked them. Before they knew it, they got jumped on, and they couldn't catch up. It kind of feels to me here in that Penn State game, do they kind of overlook Penn State? They're more worried about the outside noise and don't take this game seriously and think they just have it in the bag, and they just try to do too much, and they lose. They have to play within themselves, play within the offense, play within the defense, be who you are. You've obviously can run the football very effectively. You can throw the ball when you need to. You don't get shootouts very often, so you don't have to worry about that fast-paced offense. You do it your own way. You play defense and you chug it through and you methodically dominate the opponent. Penn State is very, very similar in their regard from offense and defense. But when do we stop actually believing in Penn State? This is the game right here. This is the make it or break it game, in my opinion, if you're James Franklin. You've had opportunities to show up and get close, but you've never been able to actually break through. And with the Big Ten going in next year with USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington joining, I'm just going to say right now, the Big Ten and SEC are probably each going to get 4 teams in the playoff next year in the 12-team playoff. That's 8 of the 12. Are you one of the top 4 teams in the Big Ten? Or are you just going to be not taken seriously? Right now, you are living on the coattails of being a preseason top 10 team and sort of hanging in there and having your only loss beat Ohio State when you played pretty competitive. And, on the scoreboard is 20-12. You were kind of down early, but you fought back. But can you actually win a big game? Or are you just going to beat up on 10, average to best teams, and then your 2 losses are going to be against your 2 ranked opponents? And if that's the way it's going to be, I'm not taking you seriously anymore as a true contender in the Big Ten, a true contender nationally. You're just a team that has a schedule that allows you to beat up on everybody else, and your 2 true premium opponents, you bend the knee and you lose. Will you show up and take down a Michigan team? This is not a 4 receiver spread offense, going to throw it all over the yard kind of. This is not C.J. Stroud and Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Buka, et cetera, coming in to Happy Valley. This Michigan offense is ground and pound, play action, keep it within the average. They're not a 4 receiver, spread it out, chucking for 400 yards a ball game. You can control the narrative if you play at the line of scrimmage and you dominate in the trenches. If your linebackers tackle and your defensive backs come up and hit people and make plays and force turnovers. If you play physical and your offense can find ways to run the football and score and be Michigan and do exactly what they are, you have a chance of winning. But this is a program-defining game for Penn State. Are you going to be taken seriously as a true national contender going forward, or are you just going to be another team on the schedule in the Big Ten and get lost in the shuffle when it expands next year? This is your one shining moment, to use an NCAA March Madness term, to really make a statement and get something done. You have the home crowd. You have a chance of really shocking the world. You have a team right now currently in turmoil that might not be fully focused. Can you go in there and take advantage of the situation? But we keep hearing about J.J. McCarthy and your Heisman moment. If Michigan's going to win, you're going to need to have a Heisman moment this week or versus Ohio State in a couple of weeks. Because right now you're still on the fringe. Your stats don't look it. You haven't played really in the second half. You're probably going to play full 4 quarters on Saturday. Can you make the throws when it matters late in the ball game? Can you make that big 3rd down throw in the 4th quarter to keep a drive alive to put the game away? That's what I want to see from J.J. McCarthy. Are you ready to play a full 4 quarters in a hostile environment and get it done? Because if you know what, if you go out there and put on a show, I might actually take you seriously as a Heisman contender. Maybe you'll be in New York as one of the 4 or 5. But you have to show me here against Penn State, and you have to put something up on the board to get it done. Because right now I've just seen you just beating up on bad teams, putting up points, and you have sit on the bench in the 3rd quarter. I want to see you play full 4 quarters because you're going to need to and get it done. In the end, I don't trust Penn State. I just don't have the faith in Penn State, and that 4 points is just too easy for Michigan to cover. I think Michigan covers. They win by a touchdown. I'll say 20-13, 24-17, somewhere in that ball game. But Michigan will find a way to win by a touchdown. They will cover. And Penn State, it'll be another year of what if and move on from there.
Fresh, you stole one of my great talking points here. Was for the Wolverines, this game means, I don't say as much as the Ohio State game, but it's pretty darn close. It is pretty darn close that it means a lot. It means more on a different sense of the game. This is the first game that you're going to have, like a real test game that you're not going to have your sign stealing dude out there on the sidelines and all that hubbubaloo. Are you able to go into Happy Valley without any of this? Because I tell you for sure, Penn State has switched up their signs. You have no idea what any of their signs mean. And are you able to beat Penn State because you're a better football team? You have a better game plan. You execute your game plan. You're just a better football team than them. That's going to mean a lot to Michigan. Because if they win this game, they're able to say, like, whatever the noise is, like, look, we're a better football team. It didn't matter that we had signs or anything like that, because everyone does that to an extent. Maybe not to the extent they did, but everyone has tried to steal signs and stuff like that. For Penn State, this is a let's throw chaos into the world. Because if Penn State beats the Wolverines this weekend, they will become the biggest Wolverine fan here in 2 weeks and waiting to see them beat Ohio State. All of a sudden, you have a 3-way tie in the Big Ten. Now, it really is going to come down to, it looks like it would come down to Wisconsin and Iowa, whoever finishes better. Because if Wisconsin's finishes better, Ohio State would win the Big Ten. If Iowa finishes better, I believe Penn State would go to the Big Ten title game. If I'm wrong on that, go ahead and correct me. But I think if I understand how all the tiebreakers work, that would be how that one works on there. I actually think the Wolverines are on the outside looking in from Indianapolis. This is a huge game for James Franklin for all the reasons that you said. You didn't beat Ohio State when you had an opportunity. You played a great defensive game in Columbus, but you had a pretty poor offensive game. Now, Ohio State has a top 5 defense. Michigan has a top 5 defense. But so is Penn State. And Penn State is doing something that only them and James Madison is doing. They are allowing they are allowing 60 yards rushing a game. That's it. The next closest team is UCLA at 70 yards rushing a game. So this is an elite Penn State defense. They've been a little bit tested. They played in a hostile environment going against Ohio State. And they've had a little bit of time to look back at that game. What could we have done better? How could we have prepared better for this? And it's a home game. You're sleeping in your own bed. You're not having to get up. You're not having to stay in a hotel. You're not having to leave on Friday to check into a hotel. You can keep your normal routine. James Franklin needs this win, and he needs this. He is a desperate man. Jim Harbaugh needs this win. He's a desperate man. Fresh, I'm going to tell you this right here and now. The Nittany Lions are going to win this football game.
Woo!
And that's not me picking. I'm not picking against the Wolverines for any biases purposes. I legitimately think that this Penn State team is extremely motivated. They've been tested a little bit before. Take a look at their home games this year. West Virginia, quality football team. Not the best of the Big 12, but they're a quality Big 12 team. At home, 38-15. They held Iowa, even though Iowa has no offense, but they held Iowa and they put up 31 points on a very good Iowa defense. Indiana, that was a letdown game, but then you look last week going to Maryland. Maryland's been a tricky team all year long. 51-15 in that game. Fresh, I got a feeling about this one. I just, while I'm not willing to trust my gut on the Ole Miss Georgia game, I'm willing to trust it on this one. I'm having the Nittany Lions, and I'm going to say Nittany Lions by a touchdown in this game.
I mean, first off, noon kickoffs, as we've seen with ranked teams playing, the higher ranked team always kind of comes out a little sluggish. Noon kickoffs can be a little weird for people. And when you mentioned James Madison, I thought you were referring to beating Michigan State in basketball or applying for a bowl exemption. So that's also interesting with what else you added there by the run defense.
Yeah, because I look at this and Michigan is they're good. They are a good football team, but you take a look at their schedule. The only team I look on their schedule and say, who do you have any respect for? Rutgers has got a good defense. Nebraska, maybe. Minnesota. But really, you know, this is going to be it for Michigan. I think there's too much noise. I think that the Penn State is going to hammer them with the Allen and Singleton, and Drew LR is going to start making some really good throws. He's only got one interception in a year. Great offensive line. He's going to be able to kind of neutralize that Michigan pass rush. They're able to do it against Ohio State a little bit, but LR didn't really learn from that game. This is going to be the game that we're going to see. Did you get better? Did you watch that tape and go, in this situation, I should have done this instead? And I think I liked him coming out of high school. I like Drew Alar. I think he's a good quarterback. I don't know. I really think Michigan's in for a rude awakening. I still would say Corum has a day. I
He
think
has to
Corum,
have a game. He hasn't had a true day so far this season. He hasn't had that announcement that he's still dominating. And I think
yeah,
that if they're having any chance, he has to be involved.
yeah, he's averaging less than 4 yards a carry against Indiana, Indiana, Michigan State, and Purdue in his last 3 games. Kid's barely averaging 3.5 yards a carry, so come on. You
Now,
need to see a
one thing
little more on him.
I'm gonna pose a question to you. If
Okay.
Michigan loses on Saturday to Penn State, the second game after Connor Stalions has been um, relieved of his duties, does that actually give more merit to what they were doing? Or does that just add to more of the chaos of like people are going to start jumping out of the woodwork like, whoa, you finally lost the game and you didn't have the signs. Like, how does that play out? How does that's the story continue to unfold in your eyes?
I think exactly that second thing happens. You want to say whatever narrative you want to make it be, but I think people will come out of the woodwork going, "Hey, you didn't you only won because of science," and you forget that Michigan was a very talented team. You
Yeah,
know,
and they were still dominating the line of scrimmage.
right?
There's certain
And
things where you have signs or certain things of execution.
yeah, I mean, guys, come on, let's not act like I know people will say like, "Oh yeah, I haven't signed." It's like, Grant, yeah, you can make adjustments and stuff like that, and it does give you a slight advantage. But the games are won and lost in the line of scrimmage, and okay, if you did wrong, you did wrong. Take your punishment, go on for it. But let's not blow this up more than what it is, and like let's just kind of move forward. Like both sides on it, like all the fans jumping on. Oh, vacate all the wins for the last 2 years. Like I hate vacating wins. We
I
all
mean,
know who won the games.
let's not vacate those wins over. There were some games they were winning regardless if they had signs or not.
Right. Right. And the other side of like, well, everyone else in the world is come on, guys. Like, yeah, everyone else is speeding down the road and you're the one who got pulled over. You were the one who got caught. Take your punishment, whatever it is. Harbaugh's off to NFL because he doesn't want to deal with this malarkey one way or another. But, it is what it is, guys. Like,
Kind
I
of reminds me of Pete. Kind of reminds me of Pete Carroll, where things started closing at USC. He
yeah,
got out before they got hit with any sanctions. They
right.
had to deal with it after he was there, but he was already in Seattle. You try to like Harbaugh's going to be a little late here, but you try to get out before you become involved with all the nonsense.
Right. And really, what are we talking about? We're talking about stealing signs. And not like the fact that you did it because what you did isn't like a huge issue. It's that the way you went about it is what became an issue. But we're not talking there. When I say this all the time, it really is a victimless crime in this. There was, okay, yeah, Vegas and they beat the odds, what have you. It's a risk you take with gambling. But, we're not talking about anyone assaulting anyone. We're not talking domestic violence. We're not talking about, you know, all the other crimes that have a victim out there that we need. We're not talking like a Jerry Sandusky situation. We're not talking anything like that. Let's pump the brakes on like ready to, burn like him and effigy and like all of that, and like let's settle down here, like put the pitchforks away, put the torches away. And then also Michigan, stop trying to deflect and saying like, oh well, look over there or look over here. Like, no, let's just be realistic about everything here. You got caught. Here's your punishment. Boom, it's over. We move forward. Yes, other people were doing things too, right? But we caught you. So I don't know.
Red-handed.
I'm just kind of over the whole situation. Me personally, I
Hey,
just kind of look at it and go,
it
all right. And that's as an
it
Ohio
just makes
State
me
fan.
really excited for November 25th when the Buckeyes head up north because there's allegations that there's a certain team in Columbus was the one hiring people, even though that's been disproven. But the angst and animosity with all on the line, that game is going to be even on a higher level for 3.5, 4 hours with a lot at stake.
Yeah.